Thank you all for joining me on this Tuesday evening, assuming you're watching the second the podcast comes out, of course. And thank you, as ever, for sharing your thoughts and opinions. Comment section below is the best place to do so. And if you have a longer story, maybe with some pictures, you can email hi@tuesday@dobbs.com. Without all of your kind opinion every week, I'd be sitting in front of this table here awkwardly with nothing to say at all. This is all thanks to you. There's nowhere else to start this week. BSA Gold Star, continuation from the discussion at the start of last week's episode. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it has. To give you a sum up, a recap from last week, gentleman wants to sell his BSA Gold Star that's about a year and a half old, but none of the dealers he's contacted are willing to take his bike in as part exchange. I then asked a question. If there's anyone at BSA who's happy to just put some of these BSA Gold Star owners, past, present, or future, put their minds at rest as to what's currently happening, because I know a few people are concerned with the price of a new BSA Gold Star going from 6.5k down to £5,000, some slight quality control issues for some customers, and of course this owner who's struggling to part X his bike. So I wanted to see if there was any insight that I could gain within the industry, within some dealers. I didn't get an official response via email, but what I did have is a brief informal WhatsApp discussion with someone pretty high up at BSA UK. But because it's not an official response, I'll keep their name private and I'll keep the conversation fairly vague. Here's basically how it went. BSA weren't happy with the thumbnail I put up last week and the title, something like dealers not accepting BSAs in as part exchange. They said it was untrue and clickbaity. So I agreed to change the thumbnail and make it something generic, something like BSA and Sportsters. So that's why you'll see a difference in the thumbnail from last week. But I think it's really important here. I want to make sure that we carry on having this weekly podcast as an open forum for everyone to share their thoughts and opinions. It's a very rare thing, this, where everyone can speak freely. And I'm in an incredibly lucky position where, because of your kind input, all of you, I get to build up themes and patterns read from hundreds and hundreds of reports from all of you on a weekly, on a monthly, on a yearly basis, so I can see patterns within certain models of bikes. That's why I choose to read out certain stories when I do. So it's really important that we protect that, because what we've got here is an excellent open place for lively discussion. It's also really useful for BSA owners in general. If they do have a problem, they have a place where they can vent their frustrations, if they have those frustrations, from right here in the podcast. So thank you everyone for all of that insight. It's been quite a fiery debate. I know that, well, I've been told that there are a good chunk of people within the motorcycle industry who are not happy with me. Someone told me that. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's the situation right now. I completely understand that this topic in general, especially with the current climate, it's not a pleasant topic to have in many quarters. I'll read out a few bits of insight from people sharing with BSA, because there are plenty of people happy with their BSAs and there are some people who have had issues, but I want to try and make this as level-headed as possible. Joe says, Freddie, maybe you could tell the person from last week, try Colchester Kawasaki to try and sell it there, because that's a BSA dealer. Archibald says, BSA problems. The trouble with your type of content, Freddie, along with YouTube, podcasts, and the internet in general, is the ease with which negativity about motorcycle brands can be spread, whether with an element of truth or basis. Moto Tingle says, I've got a BSA Gold Star 650, picked it up for £2,200, 2023 model, with 800 miles on the clock. It lasted 2.5 days before major electrical fault due to the loom stretch. Took me 5 weeks to get it into a BSA dealer, and I've been documenting my owner experience and it's the worst I've had. That's Moto Tingle. Marty says regarding BSA as a former dealer. Okay, this will end the BSA chat and move on very interestingly to the next part. So, as a former dealer, I can tell you why dealers won't take them in, because no one wants them. So the only way a dealer will take a slow seller is if it's so cheap, it doesn't matter if it's in stock for a year. Now this leads on fascinatingly to the next part. The motorcycle industry is in colossal trouble. I've had a lot of you discussing this and asking to do a piece on this over the past few weeks. And this will help to understand and explain the fact that the gentleman from last week, his BSA Gold Star, isn't selling. Dealers aren't accepting it. But this is actually more widespread. Dealers just aren't accepting any Part X's at the moment. I'm generalizing massively for dramatic effect. But dealers, a lot of the time, they're just not accepting bikes in part exchange. And here is why. Listen to this. MH begins. Freddie, are there any comments on the dealers closing down? Completely Motorbikes, for example. Apparently, 21 stores across the UK will close. P&H, they sold to Superbike Factory. Saltire Motorcycles gone. SMC, Street Bike. Harley Manchester, Harley Chester. Lind Harley. Reading Harley, Watford Harley, JW Groombridge, Barnstormer BMW, Maidenhead BMW, BMW Cardiff. And these are just over the last few months. I gather that forecourt debt for big dealers is around 1 to 1.5 million, and servicing that debt with poorer sales this year must be starting to bite. Or is it just a natural levelling because there were too many bike shops to support the market? Davey says, Freddie, another motorcycle dealership has went into administration. Saltire, Edinburgh. You once went there to pick up an Enfield for your trip to Scotland. So many going under, it's just a worry. This is the place where I started my Scottish road trip. And I did the tour with the Highland Scramble. I'm just going onto the Instagram account. That breaks my heart. I loved the dealer and the people were lovely there. This was a proper dealer, really good. They sold Indian motorcycles and other stuff. They had an American pickup truck inside. This was a really nice dealer. So if this is gone, you know the industry's in trouble, because this was one of the better dealers I've been to, full stop. Saltire Motorcycles, no longer trading. We will miss you guys. Oh, Levi as well with his Indian Chief Vintage Dark Horse. I remember the team. That breaks my heart. Such a shame. Kiwi biker Paul, have a listen to this. Not just UK. I sold recently my 2022 BMW R1250 GS, mint condition, privately here in New Zealand for health reasons. I planned to buy a smaller bike, but no dealer would trade my bike at any price, and dealers are going bust here as well. My bike was still under warranty, so no risk to the dealer other than the trade-in value. And this is a GS 1250. This is a really desirable bike that people like. So if Paul over in New Zealand can't sell a GS as a Part X to a dealer, yeah, you're in trouble now. Ozzo Outdoors. Freddie, same here in Australia. Very hard to get a sale for any decent price. That is any brand of motorcycle. Simon continues, this is interesting. Tried to trade in my Immaculate Triumph 900 Scrambler. This is a really nice, good, popular bike. No one wanted it. Finally bought a CF Moto 800 MT Sport without a trade-in from Apple Yards. They said they had 10,000. This is the dealer, Apple Yards. They said they had 10,000 second-hand bikes in stock in their group, and they just couldn't take any more as they can't sell them. That is all manufacturers. George says, Freddie, what a load of tosh. Yeah, I assume that's aimed at me. You know, the amount I've been ripped into this past week. Where's my violin for my sympathy song? Let me see if I can find it somewhere. Got a small violin somewhere. If I can find it, I'll play a sympathy song for myself later. Right, George, let's carry on with this. Freddie, no dealers are buying bikes just now. The reasons? Slowest summer sales season in memory. I'm in the trade. Oh, George, this is good then. Okay, in the trade, and most dealers are not buying in as they're sitting on huge stocks and loads are looking at the prospect of going bust over the winter season. Not just a BSA issue, Royal Enfield used bikes from the same bracket. Dealers just don't want them as so many discounted new bikes just now. Oh, it's a real struggle at the moment within the industry. On a selfish note, for consumers, for buyers, for owners, for riders, it's going to be a good thing with regards to prices, because the prices will have to come down. Because for one, if dealers can't take any more stock in Part X, they're full to the seams. It means that people are going to have to start selling their bikes privately. Auto Trader, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, places like this. So the prices will definitely drop. And of course, it means that dealers are going to be desperate to shift some of their stock. So they will have to drop the prices. So actually what we're seeing here, to an extent, are we just seeing, like the earlier listener commented on, that I agree with, the market correction? We've been saying for a long time here that bikes, especially in the used market, are overpriced. Is this the start of the correction to maybe where used prices should be? Thank you all. Fiery debate, generated a lot of discussion. Fascinating. On now, Motomine on eBay. Do any of you want a fun project over the winter? Tuck yourself in your garage, flat screen TV on the wall, cup of coffee, put on some films, start messing about with a project bike. I've got the thing for you. This is from a company on eBay called Motomine. They do have, I must be completely honest, some slightly up and down feedback from you. In fact, it was you, the listeners, who showed me that Motomine exist. Some people say that they're pretty firm negotiators when trying to buy written off bikes. But what they do have, I don't have any experience with them, but what they do have is a really interesting selection of bikes on eBay. Too interesting to ignore. So this is a company that buys written off bikes and then simply they resell them on eBay. Every single bike is a proper auction. No messing about here. Every bike will sell to the highest bidder. Check this out. I mean, this is so fun to go through. So type in Motomine projects onto eBay. I'm going to show you 3 of my favorites. First one, 22 hours time this ends in. Harley Davidson Sportster, non-structural damage, 26 bids, £2,170. And look at this even more interestingly. We say, some of us, no one's buying motorcycles at the moment. This isn't true. People are buying motorcycles at the moment. People are very, very keen on buying motorcycles at the moment. The only thing people aren't keen on, because they've had to tighten the purse strings, is spending a lot of money on motorcycles. But certainly this proves there's a lot of interest still in buying bikes. This bike in the UK has had 576 views in 24 hours and it's got 26 bids. And what about that for a project? I don't know what it would go for, but that is really tempting. I'll do 2 more because this is just too fun. Triumph Speedmaster 865, 22 hours left, £1,800, 164 views in the past 24 hours. I think there was one more I wanted to show. Triumph Rocket, 2014 model, non-structural damage, £1,950 for that. And you can see if I just go to the top here, ended, you can see the prices, actually. That Moto Guzzi went for £2,138. Aprilia 750 Shiver, whatever that is, £765. Come on, look at this. Triumph Street Triple 675, spares repair, £1,340. I have to do a couple more because this is fascinating. I didn't realize. Usually I can't see the end price. Yamaha MT-0125, £1,300. BMW S1000RR, 2014 model, £2,400. I could go on and on, but take a look at that. Have some fun with it. That is Motormine projects on eBay. I love stuff like that. On now to the simple pleasures from Steve. Freddie, I passed my direct access in 2022 at the age of 28, fulfilling a 10-year-long dream to get on two wheels. I use my motorcycle at home for regular rides out in all weathers, as well as year-round commuting. I've got a very humble 2009 Yamaha XJ6 diversion. Steve, I'm jumping in. I mentioned the Yamaha XJ9 diversion last week. The amount of people that got in touch with me to say, yes, greatest bike ever. I had people saying they've owned 3 XJ9 diversions and it's the only bike they will ever own. People adore diversions. If you want a workhorse, there is nothing more tough, more rugged, more reliable than these. Sorry, Steve, carrying on. The diversion, it's nothing fancy, but it's a trusty workhorse and I love it for that. I'm currently in Bali for 2 weeks on my honeymoon with my wife. We've rented a very humble Honda Adventure 160 scooter for just £7 a day, which is incredible value. We went to Pad Thai, Pasut Beach, which is a 2-hour ride away, to go and ride on the beach, and what an incredible experience. Riding in Bali is certainly an experience, as you know very well. The madness of it all is terrifying at first, but the chaos just works. Steve, what a glorious, glorious way to spend a honeymoon. I hope you have an amazing time. Those little bikes, 125, 150s in Bali. I remember I got a Kawasaki Z900RS, the big beast, and a Royal Enfield Classic 500. Both of them I got for the weekend. And honestly, hand on heart, by the end of the weekend, I was so happy to give both of them back and get on my little 150cc Honda Scoopy. That's just so much nicer to ride in Bali. The Scoopy is way quicker getting around Bali because it can nip in and out of traffic. It is so much easier to live with, to ride. It's got storage under the seat. It's comfier for 2 people, maneuvering, more economical. Specific bikes for specific places. 125cc bikes in Bali. That is all you would ever need. Steve, enjoy. Ooh, here's something. Unburstable reliability from Honda, but, this is interesting, general build quality issues. Freddie, check out the pictures as I read this out. In 2019, I got my first bike, a new 125cc Honda Forza scooter, which I love and use daily for commuting all year round. It's never once let me down and always starts on the dot, come rain or shine. However, the same cannot be said of the general build quality of the bike itself. The grab rails at the back corroded and had the paint fall off. The frame, which is all encased under plastic fairing, has started to rust, especially around the welds. I mean, take a look at these pictures of the frame from a 2019 bike. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. Earlier this year, I got yet another Honda, this time an NT1100 DCT, which I love and hope to go touring with. It was delivered to me in May of this year, so remember that, just May of this year, 5 months ago. And I've only done 4,000 kilometers so far with it. In the 5 months that I've had it, it has never been ridden in the rain, has always been garaged when not in use, and I've washed it about 6 times, and each time I've made sure to meticulously dry every single nook and cranny on the bike. Much to my surprise last week, I went to wash it and I noticed that this bike too has started showing specks of rust and corrosion. I had a look around the bike and I noticed that the welds on the fuel tank, where the seat hooks into, are starting to show signs of rust. I also found the beginnings of corrosion on the fuel tank ring and pitting on the engine block. Surely this can't be blamed on leading in a harsh outdoor life. I have no doubt in my mind any of these bikes will ever leave me or other owners stranded. However, is the Honda quality we've all come to expect and assume when buying a Honda motorcycle starting to wane. It certainly seems like corners are being cut on everything from their budget scooters all the way up to their flagship models. That's from Matthew. I had this come in from another Honda owner. Spearmint Vol. It's a funny old world. Every Honda I've ever had has included either build quality or design issues. The Hondas I've had and seen corrode faster than any other make of motorcycle. Honda CB1300, all the lacquer falls off in 12 months. Honda Hornet rusts away like a time-lapse photo of a rotting apple. Honda CB500, corrosion to the point of swing arm failure, assuming the rest of it didn't just fall apart from vibration. I was given a cheap Honda moped that I used for ages that seemed to have been the recipient of all the legendary Honda quality I'd heard so much about. And to be fair, they did keep starting and kind of running. Poorly wraps it up here. I'm glad someone else has picked up on the quality/reliability issues of Japanese bikes going downhill. I was always a fan of Honda bikes, always believing they were the best quality, but my 2018 Honda Africa Twin, delivered with rust on the frame, ended that illusion. Several quality issues with the Africa Twin got me investigating, and it's only when I put Honda bikes being manufactured in Thailand together did I understand why there's been this drop in quality. I have heard quite a few bits of feedback like this, which is a real shame for a brand like Honda. I should say almost no one says the reliability from Hondas has started to go downhill, but the fit and finish, yeah, people are complaining about that. On now, African Dreaming. Here now, Freddie, pictures included, in the midst of a level 3 Marburg outbreak, driving a Chinese 200cc bike, now in the hills of northern Rwanda, in gorilla and volcano territory at Musenza. The roads are good and we're getting some rain. Off to see if we can find a cheap guide to take us to see gorillas. We've already seen rhinos, elephants, lions, zebras, giraffes, warthogs, hippos, buffalo, etc., and I've only been here a few days. But this is a superb motorbiking location, and it's cheap. I'm staying in the attached villa, pictured, for £20 a night, with a view of Mount Basoko from my balcony. Jason, that is absolutely glorious. And it goes to show bikes for different locations. In Bali, 125cc bikes are perfect. Out there in the African terrain, small, light, off-road type bikes, 300, 200cc type bikes, the perfect kind of thing for the terrain. Have a brilliant trip, Jason. I will wrap this week's video, Bike of the Week, with a continuation of the very last thing I said in last week's episode, which was where a gentleman shared his personal opinion, his personal insight about Japanese bikes. In essence, saying that Japanese bikes are so boring. If the only motorcycles in the world that existed were Japanese, well, you may as well just go and buy an Italian car. I got a lot of pushback to that, which is exactly what I wanted. Many good bikes recommended, but there was one that is a very rare bike, recommended more so than anything else through emails and comments in the description box below. It's a bike that I haven't mentioned for a while, and I'm sure you can guess it if I just say the engine size. So why don't I just read it out? Breaker Steve says, Freddie, I've mentioned my bike before, but if you want character in a Japanese motorbike, ride the 1700cc, can you guess it? Yamaha MT-01. I've owned mine since new in 2005, and I will never sell it. These are such unique bikes. They were made from 2005 to 2012. They've got 90 horsepower, 1700cc V-twin engine, 240 kilos, so not ridiculously heavy at all. Brand new, these were £12,849, and to give some relativity, The Harley Fat Bob was around about the exact same price as that. So these were really expensive bikes. You needed to really want one of these. Think about it. A Japanese motorbike with a V-twin cruiser engine inside, priced at the same price as a Harley Davidson Fat Bob. I mean, that is just about as niche as you can possibly get. Here's a fun fact. Do you know what the MT stands for within the name? Master of Torque. How brilliant is that? I had no idea. Master of Torque. Makes me want one even more. This bike was aimed at rectifying what some of you believe to be true, that Japanese bikes can be boring. So the aim for Yamaha with the MT-01 was to show the world that, yes, Japan can build very, very practical, reliable bikes, but also if you want raw, if you want something with a visceral feeling, appeal, if you want something that can stir the soul, they can also do that too. The interesting thing is, this bike was for sale from 2005 to 2012, but depending on what article you read online, this was such a bad seller that they actually stopped manufacturing them in 2010. I've even seen a date as early as 2009. So if that's true, that they made these bikes from 2005 to 2009, they carried on selling them to 2012 for 3 years extra, simply because they couldn't sell the damn things. They had so much stock thinking, yep, great, here we go, people will buy them. No one bought them, and they just had to keep on selling them until the last one eventually went. So potentially they only had a manufacturing life of 4 to 5 years. This is a bike really based on character with a gigantic engine, but it's Japanese. So on MCN, owners give it a reliability rating of 5 out of 5 stars. That's the owners giving it that rating. And the owners' overall rating of these bikes, well, they adore them. 4.7 out of 5 average rating from owners. Take a look at this. Facebook Marketplace. You can pick these up for about £5,500 now, but this is the one I wanted to show you, just going for slightly more because I really like it. £5,690 for 2008 model. And if we were talking about Honda slightly iffy build quality issues, going on the pics here, that does not exist with this bike. Bearing in mind this is about a 16-year-old bike, the quality looks first class. The materials used, I can see it just from the pictures, how well made this bike is. And for that, about 5.5K, listed 4 months ago, 21,000 miles on the clock with 30 days warranty, so it's even coming from a dealer. You know, I actually don't think that's a bad deal. I think that's quite tempting at that price. I remember there was a time a few years ago when I thought the prices of these Yamahas were going to shoot up to £8,000–9,000. They were certainly hugely in demand, but I think it's indicative of the time we live in when everyone's tightening their purse strings, that this bike hasn't pushed on more price-wise than where it was about 4 years ago. I think that represents pretty good value for money. And we'll wrap it up there. One of the most unique bikes, I would say probably, that you can get, full stop. Thanks so much everyone for watching, and thank you so much everyone for all of your input. I hugely appreciate it. Have a brilliant week all. See you in the next one.